Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well. And it's time for another vinyl update. Yep, here's some recent additions to the old vinyl collection. That's the whole point of this video. It's been about a month since the last one, so let's get into it. Got a decent stack over here. Got a decent stack going. So let's go over what is in it. And yeah, just kind of chill out and vibe for a second over some vinyl that I got. Cool? Is that okay with you? It's okay with me. All right. Here we go. We got a twofer over here to start off this video. Two records, classics in the respectively hard rock and metal realms over here from Rhino. They're doing a bit of a high fidelity reissue of two classics over here. We have Black Sabbath, Paranoid. We also have Alice Cooper with Love It to Death. And yeah, according to the little binder sleeves over here that I saved to remind myself, they are 180 gram vinyl, so they're thick, cut from original analog master tapes, pressed at optimal media. Very heavy gatefold jacket that I can verify that the cardboard jacket on this thing is like almost, and the vinyl is 180 grams, so it's like thick. It's like thicker than the vinyl itself. It's very heavy duty. Yeah, we have some extra inserts, and both of these records are limited to 5,000. 5,000. So it's not a whole lot of copies. So you figure this is like a very sort of like, special exclusive kind of thing. And, it does really seem like they put a lot of effort into the packaging and the presentation for the most part. The Black Sabbath War Pigs, I've owned numerous copies of this album over the course of my lifetime. If you're into vinyl collecting, if you go out there and shop for records regularly, you're confronted with this record pretty often. There's like loads of remasters and older, repressings of the record in circulation. Obviously I've had it on CD too, if I can remember correctly. Like, look, if you go record collecting, like you're hard pressed to, I guess, like not have run into a copy of this at some point and probably have bought it. I've owned rough copies of this that were scratched up. Like it's a record that's just kind of very, very hard to escape in the vinyl world, and for good reason. It's got like Black Sabbath's biggest singles and classics on it, be it War Pigs and obviously Iron Man. It's a great record too. Cool performances, rocking from front to back. And look, if somehow, some way, you've never owned a copy of this, you've never had a copy of this album, I feel like this repressing that Rhino has done over here is not a bad way to get a hold of it. Kind of like master tape visual over here, which is cool. Have some information on the inside. Just basically like just some behind the scenes storytelling. Hugh Gilmore kind of talking about the engineering of the album and just like, info again on the time period and the band and the history of the album. Not like the most in-depth and, crazy sort of like reissue package I've seen for a classic rock album, classic metal album of this era, but it's a pretty good one. And, I think the record itself sounds pretty great. I think the record sounds great. And again, I've like heard multiple copies of this record. I don't know if the, repressing over here is like reinventing the wheel in terms of the sound or anything. It didn't necessarily sound like far and away the best copy of this record I may have heard. But again, that's kind of like hard to put to That's kind of hard to gauge considering I've heard so many copies over the course of my lifetime, and I wasn't exactly kind of sitting there every single time thinking like, oh, is this going to be the best copy of Black Sabbath's Paranoid I've ever heard? But what I can say is that, the sound of this one did not disappoint. It sounded fantastic. And, it's a cool package. And, an opportunity, a reminder to get plugged into one of the greatest metal albums and most influential metal albums of all time in terms of songwriting, in terms of vocals, in terms of obviously Tony Iommi. You cannot underrate or underrepresent, I think, the significance and influence of, as I was telling you guys, this cardboard sleeve is a mother. It's thick as hell. You can't really underestimate the significance of Tony Iommi's riffs on the metal genre and rock in general. So, this is most definitely worth your time and your money, I think, if you somehow have not run into a copy of this already. I've always loved the sort of expression you could see on the freaky little paranoid guy's face. God, the bright outfit, the sword, the shield. He's a creepy little neon guy. Anyway, I'm probably displaying my ignorance there. I don't know the story of Black Sabbath's Paranoid album cover. I admit, but it's always been a kind of fun, freaky little album cover. And like I said, we also have Alice Cooper's "Love It to Death" over here, which is an album that, admittedly, I wasn't really much into prior to getting a hold of this record, but it's a really cool, hard rock record with some garage rock vibes as well, some psychedelic tracks too. Yeah, hits on there like 18. It's a badass little album, again, like with the that's a sick gatefold right there. That's a sick gatefold. Like with Black Sabbath, it's 180 grams. The jacket is heavy as hell. The record itself sounds great. This I can say I've never owned a copy of, so I'm not exactly in a position to, state any kind of like point of comparison on whether or not this is like the best sounding copy of this album you could ever own. But I can tell you, listening to it myself and having heard a lot of albums from this era, it sounds really good. Again, master tape display on the insert, which is cool. And like with the last record again, you have like an interview here, a conversation, just kind of going over the record, the music, the era, all that. So, cool package. Cool that they're, reissuing these two records. Even if there's more than enough copies to go around of Black Sabbath's Paranoid, but, I don't know. I haven't been in the market for a copy for a long time, so maybe people need some more copies of Black Sabbath's Paranoid. I don't know. Shout out to Matador Records over here, in the midst of the album cycle for the new Dark Side record, which is out now, which I've reviewed and had some very interesting highlights on it. They slid me this little white label single for SNC, as well as Groucho Max off of the record, and nothing too crazy. I mean, obviously, it's just like white label, on the record itself, and we have the Matador logo, and just kind of like the tracks themselves on there. Look, listen to the new Dark Side album. It's got some interesting tracks on it. These were two of my favorites on it, honestly, and it's just really cool to have this like A-side, B-side 12-inch of two tracks from the record that I think are really cool. Obviously, there's not a lot of copies of this floating around, most likely, so it's just pumped to get a hold on this when I was just expecting a copy of the album, so that's all. That's it. All right. Next, shout out to a good friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, Marco, who was selling his copy of Blonde over here. He was selling his copy of Blonde, and you know what? I paid him a bunch of money for that shit, and now I have a copy finally. This has been a big hole in my record collection for a long time in terms of just not having it, you know. I have Endless, and I know that I had an original blonde copy at one time, but I think, or maybe I'm gaslighting myself there. I know that I used to have multiple copies of Endless, but then I did like a giveaway and I gave away some copies, like at least one or two. And I have not had the guts to spin this. This is actually the first time that I have opened it since, or, you know, kind of took it out of the sleeve since he sent it along to me. But obviously this is like the repressing. This is not the original pressing. But even this is hard to get a hold of because it was on sale for such an incredibly short period of time. And sold out in seconds, if not, or minutes, if not seconds. And yeah, again, I just have not really opened it up and sort of spun it yet. I'm just again very hyped to have it. I'm just because of the, you know, how rare the record is, because of how in high demand it is, because of how long I've been waiting to, you know, sort of like stumble across a copy that you know, I wasn't, you know, I'm not the type of person necessarily to sort of like go on Discogs and blow tons of money on a record, but this was a personal friend of mine who just was putting some albums up for sale, and I was like, you know what, it's you. I know the copy coming from you is going to be good, and you know, what the heck, just go for it. I've been wanting a copy. Now I have a copy. Shout out to Marco, and yeah, Blonde, legendary record, which you know, obviously we're all waiting for that Frank Ocean follow up to this album. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to happen. My hopes are not necessarily high, but you know, it is what it is, and I suppose it's going to happen when it's going to happen. We can leave it there. Okay, next, shout out to the Jazz Dispensary, who have been citing me albums for a minute now, jazz reissues of various stripes and you know, eras and so on and so forth. We have Joe Henderson over here, his Multiples record, 70s release, and it's a pretty good one. I think it's one of the stronger reissues that they have put out, honestly. You got a lot of jazz and funk fusion on this record, some tracks that incorporate these kind of almost or you know, moments and passages that incorporate these kind of like harmonized vocals and chants, some synths and electronics too. It's a bunch of different stripes of jazz fusion, a little spiritual jazz as well. It never sort of like dedicates itself to one single style of it, so you know, it is a little all over the place, maybe not as like, you know, stylistically defined as like a Headhunters or a Sextant or, you know, a Bitch's Brew or whatever, in terms of like its overall aesthetic focus and like what it's trying to do and what it's trying to achieve. It's like, you know, a little bit of a like a buffet of everything in terms of jazz fusion of this time period, but still the performances are great. The performances are killer, and the recording is awesome too. But I mean, that's kind of a given with these Jazz Dispensary reissues. The vinyl and the recording qualities of the reissues that they put out there tend to be pretty great. Packaging isn't anything super crazy or over the top. Just a fantastic sounding jazz record with some stellar performances on it, which range in like, you know, 10 to 6 minutes. And, you know, again, if there's a reflection, if you're looking to, I don't know, I mean, kind of acclimate yourself to the jazz fusion genre and hear, you know, several different styles within it, this album could be a good starting point. But it's a very solid and impressive release overall. Joe Henderson, Multiples, been enjoying that. Here's a newer record that I reviewed recently, came out at the tail end of last year, got to it at the start of this year, and have really been enjoying it. That is Cameron Winter, heavy metal. Went from a Brat Summer to a Cameron Winter. Been saying that. It's a very peculiar and intriguing singer-songwriter album with, some very passionate and intense performances and writing, almost like froggy lead vocals, I would say. You got a lot of pianos. Got some great bass lines on here too. And just really impressed with the packaging quality over here. I got that metal on the back, like it's like a metal surface, a table with sort of that brushed spin sort of design that I can't remember where I've ever seen such a top, but they're around. They've been around. Lyric sheet, liner notes, all that good stuff. Record itself, strange drawing of the man over here on one of the labels over here on the record. The record itself is like this sort of swishy gray, well, I mean like metal. It's a silver pressing. And it's a great record for sure. You know, if you're into outsider type songwriters, I think you're really going to get into this album. And, again, check out the review if you can. Cancer of the skin. Loving is so... I'm sorry. You got to hear this album. Love Takes Miles. Like, a lot of great performances on it, for sure. A lot of great performances on it. Bops and bangers all around. All right. Shout out to Cameron Winter. Okay, next, this is a reminder to check out a new compilation that is out now, Tranza. It comes by way of Red Hot, which is a nonprofit and an organization that they've been putting together compilations and doing fundraising for years and years, decades at this point. Originally raising money with compilations such as these. For things like helping people during the AIDS epidemic and so on and so forth. Tranza is obviously, given its title and given the artists and the content, musically speaking, when you dig into it, is all about bringing light to the plight and the voices of trans people, non-binary people, queer community at large. And I know this is just like, one record, purple sleeve, Tranza Select. This is not the compilation itself. This is more like a pared down version of the compilation with a handful of tracks on it, one of which is like that lengthy Andre 3000 cut that was sort of promoted in the release of this compilation. So again, it's just like a select handful of songs from the compilation, but there's a lot of great originals and crossovers and collaborations, inclusions from really huge artists as well. And it's a massive, massive, massive comp, like multiple LPs, a lot of tracks, a lot of everything on it. So, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that this is like, just a bit of a taste of what is on the rest of the compilation. And there's some really great tracks on it. So, if you do seek this out, I mean, the select handful of songs that are on this selects version of it, if you do run across this, I mean, are cool. You do have Sade in the mix. You do have Andre 3000. Obviously, those are no names to sneeze at. I mean, having new stuff from them is, a rarity in and of itself. But if you do seek this out, I do recommend that you go full on and look up the whole compilation. Try to get a hold of the whole compilation that really has just a super wide array of tracks on it. So I'll say that. So tip of the iceberg over here as far as this new Tranza compilation, which I most definitely recommend from an organization again that's been doing exactly this kind of thing for decades and fundraising for a great cause too. All right, next. We have another classic over here. We have Genesis. selling England by the pound. Some really great progressive rock on this record. Obviously, it's, as many people say, it's quite symphonic. I mean, the keys on the record are fantastic. The vocals and the songwriting are quite righteous and very bright and very melodic. Definitely a huge, I would say, influence on bands to come very immediately down the pipe in the prog realm, like Rush, for example, in terms of some of the more widely appealing 80s stuff that they did. I would also say, there are some very theatrical moments on this record that I think fans of Jordy Griep would most definitely, appreciate. If you're a newer, younger prog fan, especially a lot of these English artists that are, windmill scene related, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. This is most definitely an album you should be spending some time with and making sure is in your collection. But yes, classic from Genesis, one of the most essential English progressive rock bands of all time. And there you go. Maybe something that I need to dig into for a Classics Week on the channel. Maybe also something I need to dig into for a Classics Week. We have Darkthrone over here. I think it's their third album, Under a Funeral Moon. A record that was released in the midst of the band's, classic, widely celebrated early to mid 90s run where, many would sort of argue the best Darkthrone albums came out. And I've never owned a copy of this on vinyl. I don't know if there's anything about this particular record that is different than any other record previously that you could, or any other copy that you could get of this album previous to this, but there were definitely some notes and nuances to this record I was hearing for the first time, especially on the low end. There were some drum parts and some low end tones here and there that I was picking up in this copy. I was whoa, that's actually much heavier than I would have anticipated it to be. I mean, with that being said, we are still talking about a classic old school black metal album here. The guitars are brittle, they are rough around the edges, the drums are persistent, the vocals are quite freaky and goblin-like. The atmosphere is just eerie and wintry and harsh. That is the whole point of this sound. It is nasty, it is unforgiving. And, the riffs are crazy as hell and very aggressive and very romantic and grandiose at points, I would say, despite the sound of the record being as harsh as it is, and with a black metal album, this kind of early on in the birth of the genre, you are kind of catching a lot of very direct influences coming from heavy metal and coming from thrash. So, but still, very, very, you can't quite tell in the camera, I don't think, but there is a bit of, variation going on here. It is a, kind of a splotchy white gray color, like a blizzard coming at you, covering you in all the snow. So, yes, classic Darkthrone album. Like I said with the Genesis record, maybe due for a classic review at some point very soon. So, all right, let's continue. Got a couple more left. Let's get into GNX. I haven't even opened this, so whatever's happening with this, I'm seeing it for the first time. Okay, here we go. GNX. Got the GNX on the back. Great record. I mean, you guys should already know I reviewed the hell out of it and enjoyed it a lot. Got the inner sleeve there. Kung Fu Kenny with the GNX. Got all the liner notes written by, published by, so on and so forth. Nothing further than that. Black record. Oh, nice. Got the spokes there. Nice. 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 Squabble up indeed. But yes, very straightforward, to the point packaging. which I'm not complaining about. Great record. I personally think it's going to go down as a strong moment in Kendrick's catalog. All right, next, also, just going to pop this one open too. Balloonerism, Mac Miller. Let's go. Reviewed this recently too. Enjoyed this a lot too. Ooh, we have a nice kind of cardboard kind of feel to the sleeve, which is quite cool. Nice. Loving that. Ooh, okay. Interesting picture choice. Okay. This picture of him at sort of like a chair, and it's snipped out of this gymnasium photo over here. Record itself, I think, is white. Yep. It's got a plain white record, which, you know, fits in with the color coding of the vinyl package, which is quite cool. Love that cohesive vision of the record presentation. Very nice. Very nice. Got all the liner notes and sort of like, you know, credits of who's on what, doing what on each song, placed on each sleeve. Similar vibe over here. Got a snipped out photo over here. Nice. Got the liner notes. Got the white record over here too. Different label. Pretty much the same label. Label presentation on side A, B, C, and D. But yeah, absolutely a smashing posthumous record from Mac Miller. Really cool cuts and ideas. Oh, okay, nice. We have like the photo compilation over here. Oh my god, the piano chords, or not the piano chords, but like the piano and keyboard notes with the writing on them. Very nice. Sorry, speaking off the dome, sounding like a dummy in the process, but that's what I do. Okay, nice. Really, really nice package. Really nice package. But yes, you know, stellar posthumous record from Mr. Mac Miller. Great material from the Faces era, as I've said in my review of it. And, you know, just crazy that the material here was shelved, because if it had come out around the time, I do think it would have gone down as like one of his most adventurous and experimental albums of that time period. But excellent that it's come out formally, and you know, really impressive stuff on here. Time capsule, if you will, but still very forward thinking and sounds fresh and unlike much of everything else you're going to hear out there on the current rap landscape. But yeah, that's going to be it. That's the vinyl update. Those are the recent additions. So thank you very much for watching. You're the best. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, vinyl update forever.